I'm a 76-year-old lesbian. I'm a mother. I'm a grandmother. I'm a partner, sister, nurse, teacher, world traveler. Enjoy meeting new people. I was born in a community that was Amish, old order Amish, and Mennonite. Parents kind of help you choose your partner. And so I had a boyfriend. My parents knew his parents, so we were approved to be boyfriend and girlfriend. And he's turned out to be my best friend over time. We eventually got married. We had 3 children. We divorced. I never felt like I was quite one of the girls. I couldn't put my finger on it, and I spent years, literally, trying to figure out, who am I? And didn't have a name. And even going through nursing school, you think about it at the time, it was Freudian psychology. Gays and lesbians were put in prison, put in mental institutions, horrible things. And so that couldn't be me. My roommate and I talked about it a great deal, and we decided, no, that wasn't me. But I took some college classes and minored in women's studies. And that's where I realized, yes, this is me. And a friend of mine had me go to a large conference at a university for gays and lesbians. And I went there and I thought, oh my gosh, all these people are like me. I found who I was. And I went back home. I loved myself, finally. And my husband and I talked. We had a very cordial divorce. The difficult situation with that was that I could have lost my job. I could have lost my children. I could have lost my house during that time because there were no protections for gays and lesbians. But I had a large community of lesbian friends that were my support system. And probably another one of the difficult issues was my children. They had to keep a secret. They couldn't bring friends home for fear of outing my partner and I at the time. So it must have been hard for them. And although it's not a regret for me, I do appreciate what all they went through. And they were extremely supportive of the fact that I was a lesbian. They found out because somebody called them on a telephone and told them. And they came to me and said, Mom, what does that mean? And so we sat and talked about it. And my son said, I want you to be happy. And my daughter said, okay. So that was that. So I started my journey as not only a mother, a nurse, but also that piece of me that is probably the core of me, which is a lesbian. And I was feeling really good about myself. And I thought, okay, I have a partner now. My kids are good. It's time for me to tell my family. I told my good friends. So I went to my mother and I said, Mom, I want to talk to you about who I am. And she put her hand up and she said, I don't want to know. You know, it's not necessary to know everything. And I said, but Mom, I need to tell you. I don't want to hear it. And that was that. So I decided I would tell my oldest sister, who was 12 years older than me and kind of like a second mother. So I told her, and she said, well, you know you are an abomination, and that you are a sinner, and that you are doomed to hell, and you will not spend eternity with the rest of our family. I was not invited to my mother's funeral, okay, because I didn't exist. What they did do, though, my oldest brother, who would be the man of the family, called my husband, who would be my husband for eternity. Well, fortunately, my husband and I had a good relationship, and he called me and said, I think you should know your mother passed away. I did go to the funeral, but I wasn't able to take my partner, and I had to sit in the back of the room. Then a few years after that, my brother passed away. And I went up to the funeral thinking, okay, this is my brother, I need this. They did not have my name on the family list. I wasn't accompanied by a man. And so what I ended up having to do was sit in the back of a church by myself. Now the whole service was in German, so I really couldn't understand much of it. And then after the service, everybody left to have the service at the gravesite, and I wasn't invited to come. So I just came home. So that's kind of how it works when you're shunned. You more or less don't exist. About 2 years ago, this man called me and he said, are you Kay Wheeler? And I said, yes. And he said, did you have a brother by this name? And I said, yes. And he said, that's my dad. That was my dad. And I don't know you, but I'd like to ask you some questions about our family health history. And I talked to him, and we just had a nice conversation, and he asked if he could text me and call me back. And we've kept kind of a distant relationship over time. And then just a few months ago, my brother's daughter called and asked the same questions. I don't know you, and you may not know me, but I'm your brother's oldest daughter. And I'd like to ask you some questions about your family life, which of course I could answer. And so she said, well, I want you to know I still feel you're an abomination because I follow the Bible, but I've enjoyed talking with you, and I'd like to get to know you more. Well, brought tears to my eyes. When I was younger, as I said, we didn't have a word. And then when we had a word, we didn't say it for fear. And there was so much fear. Today, I don't believe there's as much fear. There certainly isn't as much fear from my generation as being gay and lesbian. And I'm certain there isn't with the young people that I've experienced on campus here, and my grandchildren and so forth feel much more open. I will share a story with you, though, that kind of perplexed me. I'm a founder of the senior university here on campus. So it's people over 50 that meet, and we have classes, no textbooks, no tests, but still it's an educational program. And last year we asked some LGBTQ kids to come and speak with us, and we would answer questions if they would answer questions. And of course we had to go through the whole pronoun thing and so forth. But it was a very open, thrilling conversation, very, very educational for both sides. But I talked to a young man who identified himself as gay after class. And I said, he was talking about how difficult it was to come to terms with his life. And I said, I totally understand. Maybe not in the same way as you, but I am a 76-year-old lesbian. And he looked at me and he said, I didn't know there were 76-year-old lesbians. Well, I've always thought of myself as kind of the invisible lesbian as I grew up, then during my working life. And then I thought, oh my gosh, am I invisible again? But no. The important thing for me is this intergenerational conversation that says this is how it was for us. Tell us how it is for you now. And I'm very blessed to have a granddaughter who is trans. And she's taught me so much about the community today. And in the same regard, she's asked me questions, and I've taught her. And what I'd like to see going forward, and particularly here on campus, is to see more intergenerational conversation